Yeah.
We got married in 1970 at Paldi Gurdwara, and my parents didn't know, my mom didn't know because we were new in Canada, didn't know many people just beside the family, didn't know anybody, but there used to be almost like a dozen families living in Paldi.
Okay.
And all those ladies made my mom feel so good. They said, you know what? Don't think it's your daughter that's getting married. It's our daughter that's getting married. So they helped my mom so much. And right away, you know, my mom started doing part and doing seva. Like she would come in the morning at 8 o'clock and not leave Paldi till 8 o'clock in the evening.
Wow.
She would stay here and do seva on, you know, Khand Path, and langar and everything. And
very nice.
we were very fortunate that we didn't have any problems as far as going to school, as far as, you know, moving from one country to another country. The little bit of problem was just at school, just with the little kids. But you know what, now that I look back and say, you know, think, okay, well, you know what, those kids didn't know any better, and because we were getting higher marks than them, and they just
it's natural for them to feel insecure because at that age they haven't reached that maturity level.
Exactly.
Okay, and can you tell us something more about, you know, the social, how was the social life over here at that time? Like on the weekends, what did people used to do? Or during Indian festivals, like did people celebrate Diwali?
You know,
things like this?
Honestly, in those days, people did not used to celebrate Diwali or Lodi.
Or Vaisakhi or any.
No, Vaisakhi was celebrated.
Okay.
Paldi Gurdwara held the July 1st Jod Mela.
Okay.
So none of the other Gurdwaras would have a function that weekend. So people would come from Port Alberni, Abbotsford, Vancouver, and the big Jod Mela would be in Paldi. And there would be a huge function at Paldi. And then Vaisakhi was held in Victoria.
Okay.
And none of the other Gurdwaras would have a function that weekend when Victoria is going to hold the Vaisakhi. You know, so the Gurdwaras took turns.
Independence, it was all coordinated.
Independence Day, August 15, was celebrated in Masachi Lake. So, you know, the Gurdwaras divided 4 or 5 important events in the year to particular Gurdwaras. And everybody from everywhere, you know, not just from around here or Duncan or Lake House or Masachi Lake, but, you know, Vancouver or mainland
area,
Port Alberni, everybody came to that Gurdwara.
Very nice, very nice. And like, did you used to keep visiting India after you came to Canada?
You know what, we've gone back. Well, we've been here for 50 years now, but we've gone back about 10 times, I would say. And the last time we were in India was 2010. And we haven't gone since then, unfortunately.
Okay. And you know what? What was the first time that you went back to India after you came to Canada? After how many years?
You know what? We came in 67, and our first trip to India was, we got married in 1970, and I think our first trip to India was in 1972 or 3, because my husband applied for his parents and his brother and sister to come to Canada, and there were problems. So my husband and I went from here, and we had our a 3-year-old son, Mark, with us, and we went to India just for a month, and then my husband and myself and my father-in-law, we went to Delhi to talk to the immigration officer. And that was the reason for our very first trip.
And I believe that it was after a long time.
Yes, yes it was. Yes it was. And then, you know, we sort of went every 10 years kind of after that. And but like I said, the last time we went was 2010. And you know, I mean, we always my sorry is my husband's band is Pujawal,
Okay.
and we had a counterpart, and I did part there as a role, and the people of Pujawal were kind of surprised that, oh, this girl came from Canada, she's got a haircut, she can actually do part. So it was such a good feeling. But we've always got a very loving and good feeling, from my husband's cousins, because my husband doesn't have, his mom and dad were here, his brother and sister were here, and I don't have any family back from home, from my bend or from my nanke. So it's my husband's cousins that we visit, and his nanke obviously. But it's good.
So and like you were also mentioning that you started doing kirtan and part over here.
Yes,
so can you share that interesting story with us?
When we came from India, my mom used to do part in India, and our house is right next to the Damili Gurdwara.
Okay.
And that Gurdwara is very famous because our sixth Guru, Tan Shri Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji, actually came to Damili, to our Gurdwara.
Okay.
So the people of Damili made the Gurdwara after they came. And so my mom every morning would go to the Gurdwara, because it's just next door, and she would do part, and we would do part. And we started because our mom started, and then I started singing shabds at functions at the Gurdwara. And so when I came to Canada, and after we got married in 1970, quite a few years after, I said to my husband, I said, I used to do part and kirtan in India. I miss that. Is it okay if I start here? And he said, well, I don't think they will let you, because you have your haircut. And so I approached the committee. Meetu Singh Manhas was the president back then.
The Paldi Gurdwara.
Paldi Gurdwara. And this is the first Gurdwara in 1967, July 1st, that I came to my first Gurdwara, Matha Teka, Paldi Gurdwara.
Okay.
And then getting married, in Paldi Gurdwara. And then starting Kirtan, the first lady doing Kirtan back in, I think, 87.
Very nice.
And then started doing Rollans and part, and so I've been doing kirtan and part ever since, whether it's Duncan, whether it's Paldi. But if there's a function in Duncan and Paldi same weekend, like I said, Paldi's close to my heart. I come to Paldi.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
And just another question I have is that how are the relations of the Punjabi community over here in general with the Aboriginal people of Canada, the First Nations people?
I think
at that time, like how were the relations?
Yeah, I think our community, the East Indian community, is a very, at least the community that lived around here. I mean, when we came, there weren't that many people. More people came, after the 70s, and most of them settled in Vancouver, not on the island. So the older people, people that came in the 60s or 50s, whatever, settled on the island. And there was lots of love and affection among the East Indian community, and East Indian community wanted to get along with English community or the first
Aboriginal
community. Yes, and I can't recall having any problems with any of them. So as far as I'm concerned, everybody was okay.
And lived in harmony.
Oh yes, yes, definitely.
Okay, that's very good to know. And do you have any personal artifacts, documents, or do you want to share or any places of significance in this area and region? Like Paldi Gurdwara is of course one of the very most significant areas. But anything else do you think is an important area
Um,
or place of significance, historic significance?
You know, and from my memories when I first came, I remember, I mean, Baldi had their July 1st Jor Mela and Victoria had April Basaki Jor Mela. So, and then Lake Caustian had August Independence Jor Mela.
Yeah.
So these three Gurdwaras, I attended all of them. You know, we went to all their functions.
Yep.
And I mean, we don't go to Victoria as much now.
Yeah.
Because in 1985, Duncan built a Gurdwara. There was no
Okay.
Gurdwara in Duncan before 1985. And it's funny that my mama's daughter, my cousin,
Yeah.
was the first girl getting married in the Duncan Gurdwara
Okay.
in 1985.
Okay. Very
so
nice, very
so and then going back to Masachi Lake brought a lot of memories because that's where we first came.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Cox being our first teacher in
Teacher.
Masachi Lake,
Yeah.
and just trying to teach us English. Very nice lady. And then Mrs. Dashwood and Lake Caustian just teaching us English. Very nice lady again. You know, they did not show us any racism. They were honestly, they welcomed us and they helped us and they didn't laugh at us because when you come from India, even
Yeah.
though I finished my grade 8 in India, but when you started speaking English in here,
Yeah, it's-
the pronunciation
Exactly, the diction,
is
yeah.
such a difference.
Yeah.
And the teachers that we had in those days, they would actually correct our pronunciation. They would not laugh at us, which was greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Now that I think back,
Very true.
they did not mind taking us one by one and taking the time
And
to
effort.
teach us the correct pronunciation and the correct spelling or whatever we had problem with.
Yeah.
So it was great, and
Very nice.
now, even now, I mean, like I said, I come to Paldi, I feel like it's just like a family.
Yeah.
It's everybody. I've known everybody for 50 years, and everybody's so loving and caring, and everybody helps each other. It's great, and I go to Duncan, and it's the same. Same thing because
Same
we've lived
feel,
in
yeah.
Duncan for 50 years. We know everybody, and everybody knows us. So it's we love living on the island. I mean, we go to Vancouver. Our younger son lives in Vancouver, but Duncan is a home.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true. That's true.
it's a home for us.
Wherever one has lived and grown up, they consider that home.
We lived here for 50 years, and I worked, as a pharmacy technician at Shoppers Drug Mart for, almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And, my husband worked for Herb Doman for 40 years. And I remember, July Jor Mela when we first came from India, and, Herb Doman or Aji Bawa, they would have their aprons on and they'd be actually doing dishes.
Yeah.
And when I heard about Herb Doman being owner of so many mills and a big guy, but when he came to the Gurdwara, he was like one of us. He was just like he said, I'm an ordinary person. If you're doing dishes for dinner, I'm gonna do dishes with you.
Very nice.
There was no
Very down to earth.
very down to earth person. Yes. Unfortunately, I didn't meet Mayo Singh,
Okay.
but he was a great man, and
Legend.
supported the community and supported lots of people, and he's got clinic in the States, and he built rooms in the hospitals and stuff like that, and the Mayo families we've known for 50 years as well, and it's been great.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you so much for taking out the time to share
Thank
your
you.
story. It was really lovely hearing your story.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Okay.